I did it. Oh. You said what? Are we live? Yeah, we are. Hi, everybody. We're going to start in just a sec. I just have to turn it on for Instagram friends. Okay.
Siri, turn off phone.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone.
Oh my gosh, I turn your phone off.
That's crazy. Can you do that, though? That's wild.
Oh my gosh.
Why did they do Nicole?
Do we have the same voice?
I think our voice is different.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, should I start? Yeah, go ahead. Hi, everybody. So we are trying something new with Property Pursuits and going live on YouTube. If you're new here, this is a monthly market update I do, but it's like, you know, everyone does market updates and they're quite stale. They just regurgitate the economic headlines and statistics and they don't tell you what you should actually do with them. That's not Property Pursuits. Property Pursuits is to tell you what me and my guest are hearing, seeing, reading in the news, but also what we're experiencing as actual boots on the ground and how these headlines, how this data should translate into your real estate strategy. So why would you bother listening to me if this is your first time being here? I have been a mortgage lender for 13 years here in Reno, Nevada. I also just graduated with my master's in psychology, which really helped me zero in on behavioral finance, which, believe it or not, is a huge, huge part of financing your first home. It's a huge part of the American dream. It's a huge part in taking the leap into becoming a real estate investor. So I use that to inform my knowledge. And then last year, I became Chief Performance Officer at All Western Mortgage, and I now have access to information from markets across the country as I coach top producing loan officers on emotional resilience and helping their clients navigate behavioral finance topics. But guess what? I have a guest today. Sitting next to me is Jill Larson. She's a realtor here in Northern Nevada, and we are actually newer friends. Mm-hmm. We became friends not because I was her preferred lender right away.
But you are now.
Yay! I just was prompting her to say that. Jill reached out and bought a table to my Future is Female event. And if you're taking notes, that's the fastest way to my heart.
That's right.
Because this is a charity event and it's coming up actually next week, but I'll come back to plug that towards the end. But what made you want to do that and sponsor that table?
Because I really think that is this my first time on this mic? Because I think you're really inspirational. And I really, truly think that more women need to have women like you in their lives. And the Future is Female really embodies that. And I just wanted to bring my group from Carson City to see you do that. And we did it. And it was amazing. And then we developed this friendship, relationship, referral partnership.
So I wasn't fishing for a compliment that time. I definitely was about the preferred lender thing, okay. But I appreciate that one. And after that, I got to speak at your event.
You did.
That's a really cool thing you've put together in Carson.
Yeah, so we started The Power of You, which was just a workshop seminar type thing, and we had guest speakers, and you were one of our guest speakers, and then we had some women that were in our networking group that came and did that as well, and just provided an opportunity for women to really embody what The Power of You means and step into like the beginning of their year that way.
This is like similar to what I'm doing with the Future is Female. It's not necessarily like related to me being a mortgage lender. Same with you with what you're doing with The Power of You and the vault.
Right.
You can't come to the Future is Female next week because
I have a vault meeting, and the vault meeting happens to be at the same time as your event. But I do have some women who are showing up and not coming to mine.
Really?
So you have to come to yours. So give me the deals.
I honestly should have ran the date past everybody before because it's also you and our graduation.
Oh, is it really?
Not the main one, thank God. But there's a lot going on next week. So, you know,
We're doing it anyway.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. But tell us about the vault because there's really cool things happening with that now.
Yeah, so the vault started off as just women in my network, kind of like you, and wanting to have a trusted networking circle. And that trusting networking circle was a way just to say, I'm a business owner in this town. This is what I do in an introduction. And it grew into something bigger. And something bigger now looks like we're a nonprofit. We now have meetings the second Thursday of every month. We're at the Brewery Arts Center. And we have 50 seats, and 30 of them have been filled for the next year.
Wow.
And it's an education, leadership, women in business that want to get to the next level. And so we're here to help them.
How do you find like capacity to do real estate, which is a very demanding job? You own a gym in Carson City.
I do.
And then to do the vault and the power of you and all of that stuff. You also run content. You're posting daily, which I know how much work that is. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I would say I don't know any different.
This is how you've always been.
This is how I run my life, and I love it.
So we were talking before about energy matching before we went live. And the reason I think we became such fast friends is because of energy matching. You're very direct, just like me. I recently posted a reel that went kind of viral because of you.
What?
About how you said that you were working with me and you were having a good experience, and agents in your office were like, I didn't know that she still does loans.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole point. And you're like, well, maybe you're a little bit intimidating. And I was like, this is an important thing for me to hear because I don't want to be intimidating.
But I think that you're pretty open and you're generous and you're kind. But that perception of like, I'm a badass, hard ass person can maybe feel that way.
Have you experienced that from people?
Yeah.
That's why you know it.
That's how come I can feel it.
Okay.
I don't want people to feel that way about me either.
I want them to I want to help people. I saw this thing last night when I was scrolling, and it was this girl making a reel, and she's like the fakest, meanest people you'll ever meet. And she's imitating how excited they are to see you and how they give you the biggest hug and they're so over the top.
Yeah.
And then she goes, the actual nicest, kindest human beings. And she shows herself just sitting there mean mugging everyone. And I'm like, it's kind of true.
It is kind of true.
Okay, let me get back on track here.
Okay.
So Jill and I, the cool thing that Jill told me before we started this, and I told her that we were going to discuss my concept on the confidence tax, is she's like, I have been very careful since you invited me to not read any of your content, not read your blog, not watch your weekly videos, kind of avoid you on Instagram so that I didn't have like preconceived notions so that we could have like a real authentic conversation.
Yeah.
So now you know we did not plan this and we might disagree.
We might.
On things.
We might.
So everybody has always thought that real estate is interest rate driven.
And I would disagree with that.
Okay, so then I do too.
Okay, good.
But I didn't always.
Okay.
I for a long time, and I think in previous years in the market, it has been that when interest rates are low, there's a frenzy of activity. Yeah. When interest rates are high, it changes. It doesn't mean it's a bad time to buy, but it changes.
Right.
But right now, I think people have been saying for so long that they're waiting for lower interest rates that they don't even know what that means anymore.
I would agree with you.
Like they're not thinking, this is my target monthly payment. They're not thinking, this is the rate I need. They're not thinking, I'm waiting for the war to end. They're just thinking, like they're literally sitting at, well, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Okay. We're going to cover the confidence tax, and we're going to be real with each other on what do we think is really driving the housing market right now, specifically in Northern Nevada. We're also going to talk and give you the updates about the Fed and all the news that came last week. And then, of course, because we want to not just regurgitate a bunch of information for you guys, we want to tell you exactly what you should be doing with the information we're giving. We'll give you strategies that we're seeing work for both buyers and sellers. Okay, so now let's really get into the confidence tax. So we saw that Zillow updated their forecast. They were predicting 3.4% price growth for 2026.
Okay.
And then they lowered it to 0.3%. They cut their forecast on how much home values would appreciate in America by over 3%. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
I don't think anyone's talking about that enough. Like, it didn't make as big a news as I thought it would have. And imagine how, if you're a first-time home buyer thinking about buying right now, and you see home values are going to appreciate 3% less this year than we thought they would, which, keep in mind, a normal healthy market appreciates at 3% year over year.
Right.
What do you think they're thinking when they hear that?
I think if we're talking about first-time home buyers, that they lose confidence. But I also think that first-time home buyers are now not looking at legendary Fox News, CNN. They're looking at podcasts, and they're looking at YouTube, and they're getting their information mainly from those sources. True. So they have to find somebody that they align with, and that's kind of where they're getting their national news, whether it's Zillow or whatnot. And I think they're stuck on that. And they're stuck on what people's opinions are rather than maybe what people's facts are.
Well, and the problem is when you are getting your information from an algorithm, even unintentionally, it sends you down an echo chamber,
I would
like
agree.
a tunnel of
Yeah.
only getting reinforcing information on the one concept you liked. And I think that impacts your ability to really get a holistic picture of what's happening in the market.
Absolutely.
So Zillow did their cut. And here's the thing. Zillow's really smart, right? They can forecast models. They have click activity. They have so much data about us
Right.
that they get every time we use their website. They follow interest rates. But when I thought about how they're following interest rates, I realized right now interest rates are right around 6%. We're actually seeing a big improvement today in the market, a little bit of a bond rally because of renewed peace talks and hopes that these ones will actually stick. But interest rates, regardless of the war, are right around 6%, which, by the way, is where every economist had predicted rates would stay all this year.
Right.
So that really hasn't changed.
No, and I think that dip that we saw at the beginning of the year in February, that might have been our spring market. That was where we were able to.
Oh, that's a good perspective.
Yeah, we were able to get in front of our clients. You could get in front of your clients. I can get in front of mine and say, if this is what you were waiting for, this is the time to do it now. And that spring market, I think, really happened in February because the interest rates were down really low.
I like this theory. I'm going to dig into this more.
Okay.
Because you're right. Like we saw, that was when I saw so many loan applications in one day.
Yep.
So we saw people get really excited. We saw more inventory because a lot of sellers jumped and listed.
Right.
Oh my God, the spring buying season happened in
In
February.
February. And this will be year 2 that the spring buying season didn't happen in April. Right? So most of the time they say that the biggest time to list your house is spring. You're going to not have that much competition, but it'll be a spring flood. And this is year 2 that hasn't happened.
Very interesting. You know how it was a weird weather winter because it's an El Nino year?
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was spring.
I forgot about El Nino because that school was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And my 11-year-old reminded me that it was an El Nino year, so the weather was going to be weird. So the El Nino year affected the spring buying season.
I mean, think about it though, but people were out because it was warm.
Yes.
Their yards were not terrible with snow. People were out looking at housing because they weren't having to sit through 2 feet of snow or shovel their driveways.
And
so
interest rates dropped to 5.5%.
and the interest rates dropped to 5.5. So when we say this is your opportunity, we're not lying. We're giving you the opportunity to be homeowners now. Now we're saying something different.
Interesting. That's a really good angle. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. The reason I think the confidence tax is what's really driving the market right now. And when I say confidence tax, I mean when you have a husband and wife sitting at the dinner table and just looking at each other saying, we can afford this, sure, but is it even safe to buy a house right now? Is it even, would anyone in their right mind make the largest investment of their life when the world is on fire?
I think understanding, first of all, who are we talking about? Are we talking about the first-time home buyers having this conversation? Are we talking about the middle market, or are we talking about the luxury market? Because I think each one of those conversations at that dinner table is going to be a different conversation.
Well, that's where we're going with this.
Oh.
Exactly.
Great minds think alike.
Let me tell them about PCE and then we'll get into
Okay.
what you're saying.
All right.
So PCE numbers came in last week and they showed that inflation is actually up. And it was mainly because, you know, PCE is the Fed's preferred measure of gauging inflation. It's personal consumer, it's my first day. Personal consumer expenditures.
Okay.
And the core PCE strips out more volatile factors, which is why the Fed likes it. Now, moving into what Jill was just alluding to with the conversation being different at different dinner tables, I realized that there has been a myth all the time. And this is what happens when you look at the headlines and try to let it influence your strategy, is that you're taking national information and you're trying to zoom in on it. I don't think there is a housing market in America anymore. There's just a bunch of micro markets.
Would agree.
Because I'll post something, and I'm sure you do too, where I say, this is what's happening, multiple offer situations. And someone, they're not trolling me, they're telling the truth, is like, dude, in my market, it's crickets. We're getting deals. We have investors picking up lots of properties. Like, it's totally different here. And I think maybe it's always been that way, and it's just been that there's been a myth that we all think there's one housing market in America.
Right. And that comes probably maybe from that legendary news media source, right? Like the national news is what everybody in the national market is what people used to base decisions on. If we can really kind of shift that mindset to what's actually happening in Carson City, in Reno, in Northern Nevada, then we become the ones that they're looking to. They're looking at your podcast to get the information. They're looking at your social media. They're looking at mine. And then if we all have a similar story, then we all can't not be telling the truth.
Yeah,
right?
That's so true. Which, by the way, if you're a realtor or a lender listening to this, you should start something like this in your market where you take the national news and bring it down to a very local level, because local content is what's really thriving right now. And it's what actually helps your potential buyers and sellers.
Right.
The main point I'm getting at with this micro markets thing is, certain price points are operating differently.
Absolutely.
Like you just said, the luxury market is moving in a very different way than the first time homebuyer market. How are you seeing that play out?
Well, the first time to be honest, I think that I'm seeing a lot of multiple offers
In the first time homebuyer market?
and that 450. And I think that I don't see it as much in the luxury market.
You see more negotiating power in the luxury market.
I do. Right. And so when we're talking about this confidence tax, really trying to understand what that looks like, sometimes life decisions influence what those three different dinner tables are having conversations. And so if we're talking specifically about the first time home buyers, they're missing an opportunity because they're listening to the left and to the right of if it's a good time to buy or not. But what I'm really hearing when I talk to first time home buyers is that you're qualifying or someone's qualifying them for a higher amount, but they're not comfortable with that payment. And so that confidence tax, I almost look at it, is it the luxury, not wanting to give up the luxury things that you have in order to have a house that provides you financial freedom and freedom from anything and everything else that you want. Maybe that confidence tax is really people are really not willing to give up the luxuries that they have. Maybe they don't want to they want to go to Starbucks or they want to have that car payment and they're okay with that.
It's an instant gratification thing. We know millennials have this. And I don't want to go Dave Ramsey on this because I don't think that giving up your latte fixes the affordability problem in America. But I've talked about it before ad nauseum actually, about how people will come here and tell me I don't want to be house poor. At the beginning of my career, I would say, I don't want you to be house poor either. You need to love the mortgage as much as you love the house, or you're quickly going to hate the house. And now I'm like, maybe you need to be a little house poor because maybe you spend money on a bunch of stuff that's not giving you any return whatsoever. And maybe owning a home and having that kind of forced savings account will change the trajectory of your financial future, which I know a lot of lenders wouldn't go out on a line and say that to people, but I'm not a cover your ass lender. So I'm going to tell you what I think. I don't want you to be unable to make the payment. I want you to focus on shopping for homes where you can afford the monthly payment by your definition of what affordable means, not mine.
Right.
But I do think you should consider that being house poor isn't the worst thing ever.
No, I think that it's a lifestyle choice, right?
Yes.
And I think that having the opportunity to have that financial freedom or that wealth later on is such a gift, and that we get to have that. And for me, I'm not sure that, I might give up my latte for a short amount of time, or maybe I wouldn't get my nails done, or whatever that may be, whatever I need to do to be able to make that $100 or $200 a month payment more, so I can have that financial freedom in 1 year or 2 years and not worry about my landlord coming and raising my rent $200 because now I'm going to have to scramble anyways.
That's a good point. I don't think people always realize, and I've looked into the studies on the mental health of homeowners versus renters.
Yeah.
And it gives you a lot of peace knowing that you own that place. Nobody's going to kick you out. Nobody's going to tell you what to do. Nobody's going to tell you whether or not your dog has to get out, that you have a place to live for the next 30 years, that you know what the payment's going to be.
Absolutely. And so then can it really be driven by interest rates? Because if once you get that interest rate, you're locked into that payment unless you choose otherwise.
Yes,
and
unless you choose otherwise.
Unless you choose otherwise. And if you're renting, you don't get to have that choice. Someone's going to make that choice for you. So can we really pin it down to the point of its interest rates are 7.14?
Well, you're totally right. And the experts have been saying that interest rates, that it wasn't that drove real estate. It was diapers, divorce, and death. It was life's milestones, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit with the inventory shifts. There's specific pockets, specific neighborhoods, price points where you're seeing different activity than just what the national headline or statistics says.
Right.
So in the luxury market, we're seeing different behavior from both buyers and sellers. In the move up market, that in between where people are outgrowing the 2 or 3 bedroom home and looking for the bigger one, needing the 3-car garage because someone in their house started driving, things like that, versus the conversation that first time home buyers are saying.
So that it's all, again, it's driven by lifestyle, right? And the things that they need. And I can tell you in my experience, especially the last 2 years, even when interest rates were in the 7s, the conversations were never about interest rates. It was about the life decisions that they needed to make. And that was going to happen. In the 600 and up, 700, this year's, I had more first time home buyers come than I've had in years past. And so those shifts, but those shifts have happened. But the first time home buyer is, I'm just having a baby. I want to have my first home, as opposed to I just got a raise. I need that garage because my child's going to start driving, or maybe I don't want to live on top of the hill anymore because the snow. I'm getting older and I need to downsize. And those conversations that I've had have never been about interest rates. Never.
That's so interesting.
Never.
Obviously, people call me and lead with interest rate because they think that it's the big driver of what they should do right now. But if you're listening to this, I think you really should start looking at it as what's going on in your life, because we've been saying this for a long time, trying to time the market, whether it's inventory or interest rates or prices. That's a dangerous strategy. You got to figure out what's the right thing for you, for your lifestyle at the moment, and for what your goals are, not just financially, but personally for the next few years. I think we're actually agreeing.
So far, I think so.
Are you surprised, or did you expect it?
Well, I didn't really know what the confidence tax was, to be quite honest with you. So I needed to understand what it was. But I think that we're probably really aligned because this is what we're seeing from the clients that we have. We're talking about those boots on the ground conversations. And they're the same. They're the same with me, and they're the same with you so far.
So far. Okay, so last week, big news from the Fed. It was Powell's last meeting as Fed chair. In the real estate industry, a lot of people didn't like him. They didn't think he was the best Fed chair. I thought his meeting was more like reality TV than boring economic news. Yeah. The way he ended the press conference saying he wasn't going anywhere. He was going to stay on the board. I mean, that was a power move. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people think that Powell was being investigated, that Trump launched that investigation into him because he was a bad Fed chair. It wasn't. It was about the budget for the new Fed building, there's a lot of nuance to that situation. He's not leaving because of that. He's not leaving because he was a bad Fed chair. He's leaving because his term is over.
Right.
The Fed is supposed to be politically independent. His term's ending. But he said, which is quite the political move, that he's not going anywhere. He's going to stay on the board, which takes away Trump's ability to appoint a governor in his spot who would be favorable to interest rate cuts. So that was like a G move.
I think so. It kind of just goes along with the way the rates have been, right? Right.
So he took his glasses off, he puts them into his pocket, and he's like, peace, and walks out slowly. And I was like, whoa, dude. I mean, he didn't really do that, but he was like, that's it, bye. And I thought it was interesting. And then that day, we've got the news that in that Fed meeting, there was an 8-4 dissent, which we've not seen the Fed be that divided. And it wasn't about pausing. So they paused. The news reported to you that the Fed did not hike or cut interest rates. And so everyone thought, no news here. But there was major news coming from that. Because in the language on why they chose to do that, 4 people voted against saying that. They said they didn't want to allude to any more rate cuts for the rest of this year. That's kind of wild. The market took that dissent, or even though the Fed's dot plot still has 1 rate cut technically on it, the market went, there's no rate cuts coming the rest of this year, and probably not next year either.
I saw that.
Wild. And also wild that people are so that the Fed board, the governors, are in that much disagreement about what to do.
So what do you think?
Well, it depends on what you think of Kevin Warsh, because he's coming in, and we think that he would be coming at this from an angle of cutting interest rates because Trump appointed him. He's very different from any other Fed chair based on his resume that we've ever had. But he says, and one thing I thought he said that was really interesting was he's not worried about inflation anymore because of AI. It's going to reduce the cost of goods so much that inflation won't be a concern, and he can cut the rate without worrying about it.
Would you agree with that?
That's wild.
That's Yeah.
Because basically what you're saying is you're taking human beings out of so many processes, and human beings are expensive.
Right. But what about the job market?
And that's the other part of the Fed's mandate.
Yeah. So then, I mean, that's where, to me, how does this all work together with that?
The other thing that Warsh said is that he wants to change how the Fed measures inflation. And I was like, what? He says he wants to get away from core PCE because he thinks we need to strip out even more volatile factors. Like we shouldn't be looking at oil.
But that's the driving factor right now, right?
Well, and it's not just a driving factor of oil, like it affects your gas, right? Which affects your budget. But beyond that, and keep in mind, I'm not going to explain this fully well because my degree's in broadcast journalism, not econ. But supply chain management, like there's a whole like ripple down effect of what happens. And that's what really freaked everyone out with the war is this is going to impact the cost of so many other things across the supply chain.
So my first thought to that is, and that's really going to affect new builds and builders, right? Is because they're directly impacted by that. And so where people might be looking at new builds, that's going to be a factor with not cutting rates and the oil market. And so maybe resale is going to get a pop back again because they're not going to be able to make the difference they had before.
Yeah. So builders had a big heyday the last few years because they had inventory that was sitting, right? And so what they did is most of them own their bank that does the financing there. And so they offered huge incentives for financing to move those properties. Because they had that kind of control and that kind of leverage and could control another major piece of the puzzle when it comes to affordability, new builds were a great deal for first-time homebuyers.
Absolutely.
They usually are not the best choice, and they were amazing because sure, you're going to have to get your window coverings and do your landscaping, but you're going to get an interest rate of 4.125,
right,
which was unheard of at the time, and that's how they moved their inventory. But we still have been underbuilding, and the cost of building a home is expensive, and it takes a long time. So if what's happening now means less new housing starts today, then we have a problem that is exacerbated 2 years from now.
And that's going to change this whole conversation again.
Totally. So managing expectations then for the rest of the year, I'm going to let you go first on something here, and then I'll tell buyers what I think you need to do now that you know there's no rate cuts coming for the rest of the year. Before we get into all that, you don't have to wait for Property Pursuits on the first Wednesday of the month. We both, Jill and I, put out a lot of content that's very relevant to buyers and sellers and will help you design your own personalized real estate strategy for free. We post it on Instagram every day, so make sure you're following both of us there. And then you're in the hot seat, Jill. I want to talk about sellers.
Okay.
Because I think sellers have got a real predicament because they're coming to you and they're saying, this house just down the street sold for $710 2 months ago. I want to try the market at $715, $720 because I don't want to leave money on the table. This is a big deal to me.
Right.
And you're looking at them thinking, 2 months ago, interest rates were 5.5% and we weren't at war.
Absolutely. That's the first conversation you have.
So they're pricing to a different reality and it feels unfair to them.
I think too, again, there's nuances to that, and finding your seller. When do they buy their house? What kind of equity do they have? What kind of conversations has their real estate agent had with them already? Have they coached them into that exact conversation of, we're not where we were 2 months ago. Interest rates are a little bit higher. Your house doesn't have what this house down the street has. And so now when we're looking at it, you almost can't even use comps and solds anymore. You have to use what's active and really take a deep dive in what the neighbor's house looks like on the inside, because when that buyer comes, they're going to start comparing. It's no longer, if this house is $10,000 less and it has some sort of upgrade that they want, that buyer wants, they're going to move to that house all day long. And or if this seller has a lot of room and equity, then he may be able to give some seller concessions that this one doesn't have it because they bought in 2023 and money's tight.
Yeah. I mean, those are really good strategies you're saying, but say you're talking to your seller.
Yeah.
I imagine that's a difficult conversation.
Do you think that the sellers are wanting to price higher because their neighbors did?
Yes.
So
and
then,
because this is their nest egg, right?
It's their nest egg, but I think that the market is going to dictate what their price is going to be. And what I'm seeing as a seller strategy right now, I'm not saying this is mine, but what I'm seeing right now is that listing agents are pricing well below the market to create that demand and that frenzy so they can have some competition. And then buyers are now coming in thinking, oh, there's 8 offers on the table, but the house was probably not priced to begin with where it should be at the market value, and or now they're countering back at a higher value. So if we just start with the conversation of what the house really could be like, maybe that's not a strategy, or maybe it is a strategy.
What do you think are the pros and cons of that strategy?
I've been on the side where that's happened to me, where, there's 8 offers and we did win, but we had to have the conversation of it was probably not priced where it should have been to begin with. And then it's the conversation of, do we get an appraisal or do we waive it?
I know, that's tough. It's so tough because sometimes the property really was this, the listing agent did it on purpose. And I have actually suggested this as a strategy on social media and got lit up.
Yeah.
Because I said, if you do need to move your property quickly and you are contingent on its sale, I would suggest pricing just below the market.
Absolutely.
And then having a bidding war and seeing what happens. But you're right. On the other side, as you're helping the buyer, that's tricky because they're saying, I don't want to overpay for this. And you're saying, I don't think you will be, but the appraiser's going to see what the house was listed for.
And I say this all the time too, is I think the appraisers are math teacher. They're coming to tell us if the listing agent and the buying agent is correct. And if we're not, the appraiser is gonna tap us on the finger with a ruler and say, you guys are both wrong. And that doesn't give anybody confidence on the other side. And then we're seeing the appraisal waivers where they don't have to have them at all. And again, it's nuanced because if they're emotional about it, they may not care.
Yeah. I've always had a hard time with appraisals because I think it's supposed to be a very subjective thing, but you could get a different value from 2 different appraisers who choose their comps differently and do their adjustments differently, who view the market differently, who view their role in the market differently. Some of them think that they are out to single-handedly correct the market.
Absolutely.
Others believe that it's a free marketplace and what someone's willing to pay for something says a lot.
So what do you think seller strategy should be? If you've recommended that before,
what do I think they should do now? I think it has to be specific to what's happening next for you. How quickly do you have to sell this thing? What is your equity position? Like you were saying, what do you need to net from this? And then the pricing has to be placed accordingly. But what you just taught me that I would start incorporating into my conversations when I coach realtors, but also when I'm talking to my client about how they should talk to their realtor is don't just look at the comps. Show me what's active. Show me how much activity it's getting at that price point.
Yeah.
Because if these are my competition, have they received any offers? How many showing requests are they getting per day? I'd ask my realtor to do that. And I'm glad you just taught me that.
Yeah. And so something that I do is every week. So when I list the house or give a suggestion of what it is, I take the CMA of everything that's in that price range because people sometimes aren't looking at neighborhoods. They're looking at price only. And they're not necessarily caring what those neighborhoods are unless they're specific to schools or whatnot or work. Right. So if we look at those and these all have showings and one of these went into escrow. Every week I'm calling you, giving you an update. This was the same house, same price, similar, and this went into escrow, and we're still in the market. Same thing for the next week. And all of a sudden, all 10 of these, when we started, 8 of them are gone. What does that tell us as the seller? So that's also a tool that I get to use with my sellers that are like, I want to just test the market. And then finally, we see these price reductions, and we're seeing a lot of those price reductions happen. And again, it's all nuanced. We don't know.
And we don't know how motivated that seller is or what situation they're in. I mean, obviously you can ask, but people are going to choose to be as transparent as they want. What do you think somebody who has been sitting on the market has to do?
I think they have to market correct.
What does that mean?
I think that they have to really take a deep dive. If they want to sell their house, they have the equity position to do so, what that looks like. Are they going to give some seller concessions and actually have that conversation when you list the house? And what kind of pricing structure are you willing to have? And if you're not willing to move that, then I need to know that from the very beginning so then I can protect your interest.
Yeah, and you can position it the way you think is going to be in their best interest.
Right.
That makes sense. Okay, so buyers, if you're watching, here's my thoughts. Feel free to chime in.
Okay.
I think you've got to look for the ugliest house on the block. I think you look for the house that isn't in a bidding war. If you're trying to get a deal right now, that's a tough thing. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's tough to be out there saying, I'm only going to buy if I get a deal. Yeah. But if that's your mindset and you refuse to walk away from it, you need to look for the least popular house. You need to buy the neighborhood and then you're going to force appreciation on your own property. That's probably the best way to get a deal right now. You can also look at the listings that have been sitting. And instead of thinking that you're going to go in there and like totally lowball the seller, here's what you need to do. You need to win the deal in your terms, because price means a lot to people, and price is the thing that most people think they have as their leverage. You can win the deal in your terms both ways. If it's a bidding war, you can win the deal in your terms by giving the seller a free rent back. Absolutely. Or by having tighter contingency periods, or by waiving your appraisal. But on the other side, when you have the ability to negotiate, you can win the deal in your terms by maybe having a longer escrow because your lease isn't going to end and you're going to delay that first mortgage payment longer. You could win it by asking for repairs that you probably wouldn't get in a different situation if there was a bidding war. You can keep your contingencies to protect yourself, and you can ask for seller concessions. Right. So look beyond the price when you're trying to get a deal. And then lastly, you got to be financially prepared for this. Like, your pre-approval has to be current, based on current interest rates. You need to know which loan programs are your options. So a lot of people go in thinking, I'm going to use a grant as a first-time homebuyer. Be prepared to use the grant, but know your numbers if you're not going to use the grant too. Understand how the grant works. Make sure that you are in contact with your lender on a weekly basis to keep your pre-approval current, because your finances are the last thing you want to be worried about once your offer is accepted.
I would agree with that. And I think too, what you do so well is you, right from the beginning, give them options. This is what your payment's going to be if you go full price. This is what your payment's going to be if you get a $10,000 concessions. If you think a rate buy down is good, or if it's not good, you providing that information up front for that buyer gives them the leverage and the confidence that they need when they go write that offer, that they already know what their terms are. In addition to that, what I think makes it really special is that 21-day escrow close. If we need to move fast, you telling me we can do it gives me the confidence to go in and write that offer to that seller. So terms matter, and terms sometimes matter more than the price does. Sometimes you can have a cash offer and it's not as beautiful as people might think that they want, and our offer is more attractive. And that's what we want. We want to put us in a position to work with someone like you, to put us in a position that allows us to have the most confidence and to pull those levers as fast as we can if we need to.
You know what's interesting? Now, as things are shifting and we're seeing more multiple offer situations, I'm showing people, on the other hand, you might offer less, you might have to offer more. And they see how 10,000 more on the price,
it's like $40 on the,
it makes no difference and gets their offer accepted. So it totally goes both ways. Okay, guys. So as I alluded to, Features Female is next week. Case Kenny is flying in, like national celebrity. Case Kenny. He hosts the podcast New Mindset Who This. He has over 1.5 million followers on Instagram, so you probably know exactly who I'm talking about. He is joining us live in person, and what really makes me excited about having him come. So my theme this time is empowering women as parents, and I chose the word parents to be inclusive because men are invited. But also, most of this content you consume about parenting is very focused on like tactical things, conversations that you need to be having, different ways to handle your neurodivergent ADHD child, how to handle bedtime, sleep issues. It's all very, very tactical. I don't want to come in with more of what you're already getting. I want to change the way your brain works. That's what I've been after from day one with you guys. I personally have a hard time with manifesting because I think it's a little bit woo-woo. I'm not a very woo-woo person, but I do believe in it. Like, I manifested a human, you guys. Case's approach to manifesting and optimism is very science-based. And so his language of optimism really works for me because he leans into the neuroplasticity of our brains and the way they work and how we can reprogram them. And then Dr. Jennifer Ross is going to talk about emotional regulation and how when you take care of yourself, which is something women actually know how to do, we just need systemic change to make it more possible. But she's going to talk about how important that is for your kids. And so it's going to be a really cool event. There's also a special surprise speaker. You guys are going to die when you see. So I hope you can get your tickets because we are about 1 week out. It's next Thursday. You can scan that QR code. And then also, if you'd like to meet with me or with Jill, I can connect you with her. Scan this QR code and we can set up an individual meeting because it's really hard to make your strategy based on a general conversation. And we both really want to help you with your specific strategy and what you should do with this information we gave you. So thanks for tuning in this time, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.